I was 43 years old when Serena Hart announced her engagement, and I finally let myself breathe. Not because I cared who she married, because it meant I could leave. For 26 years, I had orbited Serena Hart like a moon trapped in her gravity. Her mother hired mine when we were both 6, and from that first day in that sprawling Connecticut estate, I learned the rules. Serena was the sun. I was the dust that caught her light only when she turned my way. The engagement announcement hit the society pages on a Tuesday, and I read it on my phone during my lunch break, and I remember thinking, finally, not with bitterness, with relief. Serena was 38, heir to a real estate empire, and she had finally picked a man from her own stratosphere. Ethan Vance, old money, Newport Summers, a jawline carved for magazine covers. Perfect. I had been in London for 5 years by then, and a postdoc turned lecturer, a quiet life in a flat with a leaky radiator and a cat that hated me. I told myself I had escaped. But the truth was simpler. I was still waiting for permission, and now I had it. That Thursday, I packed 2 suitcases and booked a one-way ticket to Edinburgh. That I told my department I was taking a sabbatical. That I told my mother, Laura, that I needed to think. I didn't tell Serena anything. She had stopped calling 3 years ago, and I had stopped expecting her to. I made it to the security line at Heathrow before I heard the click of heels behind me. I said stop. Her voice cut through the airport noise like a blade. I didn't turn around. I knew that voice better than my own heartbeat. Serena. I said her name quietly, and I felt her hand close around my wrist. Her fingers were cold. She always ran cold, even in summer. Don't you dare walk away from me. I turned. She was wearing white. Not a wedding dress, exactly, but something close off-shoulder, floor-length, lace that probably cost more than my annual salary. Her hair was swept up, diamonds in her ears, and she looked like she had stepped off a bridal magazine cover and onto the Heathrow concourse. Red-rimmed eyes, perfect makeup, trembling lips. The performance was flawless. You look beautiful, I said, and I meant it. Serena Hart always looked beautiful. It was the only thing about her that never changed. I don't care how I look. I care that you were leaving. Again. She was angry. I could see it in the set of her jaw, the way her nostrils flared. But underneath the anger, something else flickered. Panic. Genuine, ugly panic. Your engagement party is tomorrow, I said, carefully pulling my wrist free. You should be in Connecticut. I don't care about tomorrow. I care about now. I care about you. She stepped closer, and I caught the familiar scent of her perfume, rose and vanilla. The same scent she had worn since we were 17. The same scent that had clung to every letter she'd sent me, every scarf she'd left in my room, every pillow she'd slept on in my flat. You've been gone for 5 years, she said, and her voice cracked. I let you have your space. I let you build your little life. But I never once thought you'd actually leave. Not permanently. Serena. Don't say my name like that, like I'm a child having a tantrum. I came here to stop you. I came here in this dress because I thought. She stopped, bit her lip, and I saw tears spill over. Not fake ones, real ones. I thought if you saw me like this, you'd remember. Remember what? Everything. Us. All of it. I closed my eyes. The airport hummed around us, passengers streaming past like we were nothing. Just 2 women having a breakup in public. Nothing unusual. Serena, I don't owe you a goodbye, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. I don't owe you anything. She flinched like I'd hit her, and for a moment, I saw the girl she used to be. The 12-year-old princess who had looked down at me from the top of the staircase and said, asterisk, don't look at me with those dirty eyes. Asterisk. I had been a small, scared kid back then, and my mother, Laura, had just started working as the Hart's live-in housekeeper. We had fled my father in the middle of the night, a drunk with a quick fist and no remorse, and landed in a mansion where the crystal chandeliers made me dizzy. Serena had walked down those stairs like she owned the universe, and she did own it. She owned everything, including me. Remember the first time we met? I asked because I needed her to remember. I needed her to see. She shook her head, her earrings swinging. Don't do that. Don't go backwards. I want you to remember. I was 7. You were 6. I looked at you because I had never seen anyone that beautiful, and you slapped me so hard I tasted blood. I was a child. Then you said, don't look at me with your dirty eyes. You made me keep my head down for a whole year. I had to walk behind you. Always behind you, because my eyes were too dirty to be seen. I was 6, she repeated, but her voice was weaker now. I know, and I forgave you. I forgave everything, all of it, because I had no choice. I was your maid's daughter. I lived in the room next to my mother's, ate your family's food, wore your family's clothes when they didn't fit you anymore. I couldn't leave, but I'm not that girl anymore, Serena. I took a step back, and she lunged forward, grabbing my arm again. You think you can just cut me out, after everything? She was crying now, ugly crying, mascara starting to smear. You think I don't remember what I did? I remember every single thing. I remember pushing you down the stairs when I was 15 because you talked to a boy I liked. I remember locking you in the basement for 2 days because you. Because I got a compliment from someone else. I supplied. Ethan's cousin, actually. The one who said I was pretty. She squeezed her eyes shut. You should never have been in that position, that I should have never done any of it. But I was a kid, Avies. I was a kid, and I was terrified, and I didn't know how to tell you that I needed me, I said. I know. You needed me. You always needed me. That was the whole problem. The memory of that basement still came back to me sometimes. Dark, cold, concrete floors, and oh food, no water. Just the sound of my own breathing and the knowledge that I had somehow failed the one person I was supposed to serve. When she finally opened the door, she was wearing a pristine white dress, and she looked down at me with those eyes and asked if I had learned my lesson. I had said yes. I always said yes. I took care of you, she said now, her grip tightening. I took care of your mother. She still lives in that house, Avies. She still has a job. She still eats dinner with my family every Sunday. Because she's been loyal. Because she's a good employee. That has nothing to do with me. Everything has to do with you. Serena stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I took care of you because I loved you. I've always loved you. You know I was never going to marry Ethan. I blinked. The engagement announcement. I leaked it myself that I needed you to react and I needed you to come home and fight for me, and instead you bought a plane ticket, a one-way ticket to Edinburgh, of all places. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. What's in Edinburgh? Avies? Nothing. You weren't running towards something. You were running away from me. A group of college students pushed past us, dragging oversized suitcases. I watched them go, and I felt something shift inside me. I have a job offer, I said. In Edinburgh. A permanent position. The university there. I know. I have a contact. Of course you do. She pulled a phone out of her clutch, a sleek gold thing, and flicked through it. You've been offered a tenured position at the University of Edinburgh's Department of History. Full professorship by fall. Very impressive. Have you been spying on me? I've been protecting you. Her eyes flicked up from the screen. There's a difference. I know where you go, Avies. I know your schedule, your dates, your coffee orders. It's not obsession. It's care. This is why I left, I said, and my voice was suddenly cold. This. The need to own me. Not love. Ownership. Serena's eyes went wide. Avies. You bought your ex-boyfriend Silence for $20,000 after he hit me with a baseball bat because he was jealous of me. You paid him off and shipped him to Singapore because you didn't want a scandal. Dio, you know what that did to me. It made me feel like property, a problem to be managed. He was going to hurt you worse if I didn't. You didn't do it for me. You did it for yourself. For your reputation. For the family image. Everything you've ever done for me has been for you. She dropped my arm like it had burned her. For a second, she just stared at me, and I saw something flicker across her face. Hurt. Guilt. Surprise that I was finally fighting back. I need to go, I said. The flight is boarding. You're not going to ask me about the dress? I stopped. She stepped back, and she spread her arms wide, showing off the white lace. Ethan's not the one I want to marry, she said, and her voice was steady now, almost serene. I came here to stop you from leaving because I need you to be my maid of honor, not in Edinburgh. Not in London, A.T. Hart Manor.in Connecticut with me. I stared at her. You flew to London in a wedding dress to ask me to be your maid of honor? No, I flew to London in this dress because I thought if you saw me in it, you'd realize what you were walking away from. She met my eyes, and I saw the twist coming before she said it. But that wasn't the real reason. The real reason is that I need your signature. My signature? On a letter. She pulled a folded envelope from her clutch and handed it to me. I have to confirm that I'm not legally bound to Ethan by any contract, but my lawyers flagged a clause from an old document, the property lease, from 2009. Dio, you remember it. I took the envelope, and my fingers went cold. 2009, the year Serena's father had died. The year she had inherited everything, including the estate, the company, and I had thought the deed to the small cottage on the grounds where my mother lived, and I had signed something back then. I had been 23, scared, desperate to protect my mother's position. I had signed whatever Serena's lawyers put in front of me because I believed it was a renewal of my mother's housekeeper contract. But it wasn't, was it? The cottage, I said slowly. You're saying I co-signed something. You signed a property transfer, Serena said, and her voice was soft, almost apologetic. In the event of marriage or partnership, the property reverts to you, but it requires your written consent for any official changes. Since you're leaving, I need you to confirm that the property stays under my name. I stared at the envelope. Then I stared at her. The beautiful white dress, the perfect makeup, the tears that had somehow vanished. You planned this. I planned to stop you from leaving. The property thing is a formality. No. I stepped back, shaking my head. No, Serena, you flew here with legal documents. You wore a dress that looks like a wedding gown to confuse me, to make me emotional because you know I react to emotion. You didn't come here to win me back. You came here to make sure I signed away the one thing that still ties me to you. She reached for me again. Avies, please. It's just a formality. It's 2026. I'm 43 years old. I don't get emotional about paper anymore. I handed the envelope back to her. I'm not signing anything today. And I'm certainly not staying. Avery. Her voice broke on my name, my real name, the one she only used when she was desperate. And for 1 second, I almost wavered. But I remembered that basement. I remembered the staircase. I remembered every line she had drawn around me. Every cage she had built and called a home. Let me go, I said. She didn't move. I took another step back, then another. The security line was dwindling. My flight was closing. I'm going to walk away, Serena. And I'm not coming back. She said nothing, but I saw the calculation in her eyes, the gears turning. She was already planning her next move, already dialing up her lawyers in her head. Goodbye, I said. And I turned. Behind me, I heard her whisper, "This isn't over." I didn't look back. I kept walking. But my hands were shaking. Chapter 2. I touched down in Edinburgh at 7:23 p.m., and the first thing I did was turn off my phone. I kept it off for 3 days. The university had arranged a temporary flat in the old town, a narrow building with a spiral staircase that smelled like damp wool and centuries of history. I unpacked my 2 suitcases, hung my clothes in a wardrobe that creaked when I opened it, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the stone wall across from me. IT was silent. No heels clicking on marble, and muffled arguments from the next room, and Serena. I slept 12 hours that night. On the 4th day, I turned my phone back on point 147 missed calls, 53 voicemails, point 280 texts, most from Serena, some from my mother. A few from numbers I didn't recognize, probably Serena's lawyers. I listened to the first voicemail. Serena's voice, brittle and controlled. Asterisk, Avery, you need to call me. This is not a negotiation. Asterisk. The second, asterisk, my attorneys are drafting the documents regardless. I'm trying to be civilized. Asterisk. The fifth, asterisk, your mother is worried. She called me crying. Is that what you want? Asterisk. The 11th, asterisk, I'm coming to Edinburgh. I'll find you. Asterisk. I deleted all of them without responding. My mother called at 8 a.m. the next day. I picked up because I couldn't ignore her. Avery, baby, what's going on? Serena said you had a fight at the airport. She said you've been threatening to cut ties with the whole family. Are you okay? My mother's voice was still the same gentle, worried tone she'd used when I was 7 and she'd held me after Serena's slap. She had spent 26 years believing that the hearts were our salvation. I had spent 26 years protecting her from the truth. Mom, I'm fine. I just needed a fresh start. I have a new job here. A new job? In Scotland? But why would you leave your job in London? Serena said you were happy there. She said. Mom, I pinched the bridge of my nose. Serena doesn't know what makes me happy. She never did. A long pause, then softly. Is that why you left her? Because you're unhappy. I closed my eyes. My mother had always seen Serena and me as 2 halves of the same whole. She had watched Serena take care of me, protect me, promote me. She had never seen the cages. Mom, I need you to trust me. I'm not going to sign anything Serena sends you, and I need you to not pass anything along to her. Can you do that? She just wants to keep the cottage in order, honey. She told me the documents are just for tax purposes. She's always been so generous. Tax purposes, I repeated. Mom, do you remember when I was 23 and I signed a property transfer for the cottage? Do you remember what you told me about it? I could hear her thinking. The lawyer said it was a renewal of the housekeeper contract. I didn't read it, sweetie. I just signed where they told me. Exactly. I pressed my palm to my forehead. And now Serena wants me to sign another one. She flew all the way to London in a wedding dress to ask me. Not for love. For paper. My mother fell silent. I could hear her processing, her small gasp of realization. I have to go, Mom, but I'll call you next week. I promise. Okay, baby. I love you. Love you too. I hung up and sat in the dark of my flat for a long time. The university orientation was a blur of handshakes and syllabus jargon. My colleagues were kind, efficient, and utterly uninterested in my personal history. I loved them immediately. On the 5th day, I received a couriered envelope at my office. Heavy cream paper, no return address. Inside was a formal letter from Serena Hart's legal team, demanding that I appear in Connecticut within 30 days to sign an affidavit confirming that I had no ownership interest in the cottage property or face litigation for breach of verbal agreement. Verbal agreement. I laughed out loud, and my new office neighbor, a young postdoc named Maeve, knocked on my door. You okay in there? That laugh was a bit unsettling. I waved the letter. Just an old friend trying to sue me. Maeve raised an eyebrow. An old friend who sends legal threats? That's not a friend. That's a predator. You're not wrong. I called a local solicitor I'd found through the university's legal aid service, a sharp, gray-haired woman named Fiona who read the letter in 30 seconds and snorted. This is intimidation, Fiona said, pushing the papers back across her desk. She's trying to pressure you into signing something that would retroactively waive rights you likely don't even have. But the way it's drafted, she's also trying to establish that you had a fiduciary duty to her. That's nonsense. So I can ignore it? You can, but she'll escalate. These people always do. Fiona studied me over her glasses. What's the actual history here? Did you ever hold any title to that property? I told her the truth. I had been 23, desperate to protect my mother's employment, and I had signed a document that Serena's lawyers had presented as a routine renewal. I never read the fine print and I never had a copy. Fiona nodded. Then you need to request a full copy of the original agreement. And you need to demand that she produce it in discovery if she wants to proceed. That will buy you time. How much time? 3 to 6 months, depending on how fast the courts move. In the meantime, don't sign anything. Don't answer calls. Document everything. I left her office feeling lighter. For the first time in weeks, I thought I might actually escape. That weekend, I visited the Edinburgh Castle, climbed Arthur's Seat, and ate a mediocre haggis pie in a pub that smelled like peat smoke. I took photos of the skyline and sent them to my mother. She replied with a heart emoji and a text that said, asterisk, I'm proud of you, baby. Asterisk. I was almost happy. Then Monday morning, a second letter arrived. This one wasn't from Serena's lawyers. It was from a man named Dominic Hart, Serena's cousin, I remembered, and it was short and brutal. Asterisk. Avery, I know you think you're free, but Serena has already started the process of removing your mother from the estate. She says it's necessary restructuring. I thought you should know that I'm sorry. I stared at the letter for 10 minutes. My hands were shaking. I called my mother. She didn't answer. I called her work number, the private line at the Hart estate. A housekeeper picked up and told me Laura was out for the day. Out. Or gone. I called Fiona, my solicitor. She's going after my mother's job. She's going to make her homeless. Fiona was silent for a moment. That's not illegal, Avery. It's cruel, but it's not illegal. Your mother is an at-will employee. They can terminate her for any reason. I need to stop it. I need to sign whatever they want. No, that's exactly what she wants. If you sign, you lose leverage. She'll keep escalating. But my mother is an adult, and she's been with that family for 26 years. They can't throw her out overnight without cause. It would be a PR nightmare for them. Serena is bluffing. I wanted to believe her, but I knew Serena. Serena didn't bluff. She layered. That evening, I found an email in my spam folder sent from an anonymous address with a subject line that read, asterisk proof, asterisk. Inside was a single document, a PDF, scanned from what looked like an old ledger. IT was a financial statement from Hart Realty Holdings, dated 2015.2 years after Serena's father died. And at the bottom, a series of irregular transactions flagged with red markers. I was an accountant, but I knew enough to see that something was wrong. Large sums moved to shell companies, then circled back to personal accounts, names that didn't match known employees. And one name that did, Dominic Hart. The anonymous sender had no signature, no message, just the document. I forwarded it to Fiona, then deleted the email from my inbox. The next day, Fiona called me with a new tone in her voice. Where did you get that document? Anonymous. Why? Because if it's real, it changes everything. Those transactions look like tax evasion, possibly fraud. And if Serena is involved, if she is involved, she can't afford a public fight. She'll back down. Or she'll bury you, Fiona said grimly. But you're right, it gives us leverage. We need to determine the source before we use it. I spent the next week trying to trace the anonymous sender. IT was pointless. The email was generated through a proxy, the domain untraceable. But the document had planted a seed in my mind. Someone inside Serena's empire wanted her exposed, and that someone had chosen me to do it. On the 10th day, my mother called back. She was crying. Baby, Serena came to see me today. She was crying too. She said you've been threatening her business, that you're trying to ruin her. She asked me to talk to you, to make you stop. Mom, I haven't threatened her. I just want to be left alone. She said you're working with her enemies. She showed me some papers, Avery. She said you're trying to take the company away from her. I closed my eyes. Serena was spinning her web. The document I had received, the anonymous proof, was probably designed to make me feel empowered, but it was also bait. If I used it, she would claim I was colluding with a hostile party. She's lying, Mom. I have a job. I have a life here. I don't care about her company. Then why won't you come home? Why won't you talk to her? She's so upset. She's been like a daughter to me. Avery, please. My mother's sobbing cut through me like a knife. I wanted to scream that Serena had never been a daughter. She'd been a warden. But I couldn't break my mother's heart. I'll think about it, Mom, but I'm not promising anything. Thank you, baby. Thank you. I hung up and stared at the ceiling. I was back in the cage. That night, I got another anonymous email. This one had a message. Asterisk, if you want the truth, meet me at the Balmoral Hotel, lobby bar, Friday 9 p.m. Come alone. I'll be wearing a red scarf. Asterisk. I stared at the screen for a long time. Every instinct told me it was a trap, but the document had been real. The financial anomalies were real. Someone inside the Hart organization had access to information that could bring Serena down. Or Serena had sent that first document herself, to test me, to see if I would take the bait. Either way, I needed to know. I didn't tell Fiona, I didn't tell my mother, but on Friday at 8:50 p.m., I put on a dark coat and walked through the cold Edinburgh rain to the Balmoral Hotel. The lobby was warm, lit with amber chandeliers, filled with tourists and businessmen drinking overpriced whiskey. I scanned the room for a red scarf. At a corner table, half hidden behind a potted fern, sat a woman with a sharp bob and a crimson pashmina draped over her shoulders. She was in her late 50s, elegant, with a face that looked familiar in a way I couldn't place. I walked over and sat down without waiting for an invitation. You're the one who sent the documents, I said. She smiled, and it was a cold smile. I'm surprised you came. Serena always said you were clever, but cautious. You know Serena? I know everything about Serena. She extended a manicured hand. My name is Claire Vance. I'm Ethan's mother, and I have a proposition for you. My blood went cold. Ethan Vance. The fiancé Serena had supposedly been willing to leave. His mother was sitting across from me, offering a proposition. Why would you help me? I asked. Because Serena Hart destroyed my son. She used him, humiliated him, and then discarded him, and she made sure everyone knew it was his fault. Claire's eyes hardened. She's been destroying people for years, and I have the evidence to prove it. I just need someone with standing to present it in court. Someone she can't silence. I leaned back in my chair. You want me to be your pawn? No. I want you to be my ally. Your fight is with her. Mine is with the whole Hart legacy. Together, we can bring them down. But I need to know you're willing to go all the way. I looked at her red scarf, her perfect posture, her air of old money authority. I thought about Serena, about the basement, about the staircase, about every moment I had been made to feel small. I need time to think, I said. Claire nodded and handed me a business card. You have 48 hours. After that, I offer this to someone else. I took the card and walked out of the hotel. The rain had stopped, but the cobblestones were slick, and I stood on the pavement, the card burning in my pocket, and I realized the truth. I had never really left Serena's orbit. I had just swapped one power dynamic for another. But this time, I had a choice. I looked up at the dark sky, and I made a decision. Hashtag Chapter 3. I spent the next morning in my office, staring at Claire Vance's business card like it might bite me. Gold lettering, embossed, no phone number, just an address in London, and the words asterisk, Vance Family Trust. Asterisk. 48 hours. She had given me 48 hours, and I had already wasted 10 of them sitting in a chair that smelled like stale coffee and indecision. I called Fiona at 9 a.m. She picked up on the first ring. "Tell me you haven't done anything stupid," she said. "I met with Claire Vance last night." A long, pointed silence. Then, Ethan Vance's mother? The one whose son Serena publicly humiliated when she called off the engagement. She claims she has evidence that Serena is committing fraud, tax evasion, money laundering through shell companies. The document I received, she sent it. She wants me to be her ally in court. Fiona exhaled slowly. "Avery, I need you to hear me carefully. That woman has no legal standing to pursue anything against Serena, but you do, if you can prove a personal financial injury. That cottage dispute gives you standing. She knows that she's using you." "I know, but the document was real. I checked the numbers against public records. Something is off." "And that's exactly why she sent it. She wants you to feel empowered, and then she wants you to do the dirty work while she stays clean." Fiona paused. "Did she offer you anything, money? Legal protection? Just the promise of shared information?" "Of course, because she has nothing to lose. You have everything to lose. Your job, your reputation, your mother's stability. If this goes public and you're named as the plaintiff, Serena will bury you in counter litigation. She'll make you look like a disgruntled employee, a bitter ex, a liar." I pressed my forehead to my desk. "So, what do I do?" "Nothing, not yet. Let me run a background check on Claire. Her husband, the elder Ethan Vance, died 5 years ago, and the family trust has been bleeding money ever since. She might have a motive that has nothing to do with justice." I agreed and hung up. My head was pounding. That afternoon, I got a call from my department head. Professor Margaret Drummond, a tall, bone-thin woman with a voice like gravel and a heart of gold, asked me to come to her office. When I walked in, she was holding a sheaf of papers that looked suspiciously like formal complaints. "I received this morning," she said, sliding the papers across her desk, "from a law firm in New York representing one Serena Hart. It alleges academic misconduct, specifically that you used university resources to conduct unauthorized background research on a private citizen." I picked up the papers. My hands were steady, but my pulse was racing. "She's lying," I said. "I assumed as much, but the university has a duty to investigate. Until the allegations are resolved, I'm required to place you on administrative leave." The words hit me like a freight train. "Margaret, I haven't done anything wrong. I've been here for 2 weeks. I don't even have a full office yet." "I believe you, but I can't ignore a formal complaint from an international law firm. It's a liability." She leaned forward, her voice softening. "I'm not firing you, Avery, but you need to resolve this. Quickly." I walked back to my flat in a daze. Serena had moved from intimidation to active sabotage. She was going after my career, my livelihood, my future. And she had the resources to keep going for years. That night, I received the third anonymous email. This one had an attachment, a scan page from a trust agreement dated 2009, the same year I had signed the property transfer. But this document was different. This one named me as a beneficiary. Not of the cottage, of something much larger. I read it 4 times, my hands shaking. According to the document, Serena's father, Leonard Hart, had established a discretionary trust in 2009 that designated me as one of 4 primary beneficiaries. The trust had been funded with $5 million, ostensibly for educational and life advancement purposes, but with no strings attached. I had never known about this. Serena had never told me. But she had let me struggle through undergrad, work 3 jobs, scrape by on scholarships, while a trust fund sat in my name, untouched. Why? I called Fiona again, and this time I couldn't keep the tremor out of my voice. "Fiona, I need you to look up a trust. Hart Family Discretionary Trust, established 2009. It has my name on it." I heard her fingers typing, then a long silence. "Avery, this trust is still active. It's managed by Hart Legal Holdings, which is Serena's company, and the beneficiary list includes you, your mother, Serena herself," and she stopped. "And Claire Vance." The floor tilted under me. Claire Vance? Serena's ex-fiancé's mother? That doesn't make sense. It gets worse. There are regular disbursements from this trust, but they're not going to the beneficiaries. They're going to shell companies that don't exist anymore. Someone has been siphoning money from a trust that legally belongs to you. I sat down on the floor of my flat, my back against the cold wall. The dots were connecting, but the picture was all wrong. "Claire knew about this," I said slowly. "She sent me the financial document to show me the fraud, but she didn't tell me I was a beneficiary. She was testing to see if I'd figure it out." "She's been waiting for you to find this," Fiona agreed. "And now that you have, she'll want you to sign over your share of the trust to her. That's her real goal." I thought about Claire's cold smile, her perfect posture, her offer to be allies. It had never been about justice. It had been about the trust, and about getting me to surrender my claim. But there was another question that burned in my mind. Did Serena know I was a beneficiary? And if she did, why hadn't she mentioned it? Not even when we were good, not even when we were fighting, not even when she was desperate to keep me in her life. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table. The anonymous documents spread out in front of me, trying to map the timeline. 2009. Leonard Hart establishes trust, names me as beneficiary. Serena, age 21, presumably knows about it. 2011. Leonard dies suddenly of a heart attack. Serena inherits everything, including control of the trust. 2012. I sign the property transfer for the cottage, believing it's just a routine renewal. No one mentions the trust. 2015. The first suspicious transactions appear. Money moving out of the trust to non-existent companies. 2024. Serena announces her engagement to Ethan. His mother, Claire, starts sending me anonymous documents. 2026. I leave. Serena chases me. Claire finds me. The trust is the key. It was all connected. The cottage, the engagement, the legal threats, the documents, it was all about the money. Not love. Not loyalty. Money. At 3 a.m., I sent a text to the anonymous email address. Asterisk, I know about the trust. I need proof that Serena siphoned funds intentionally. Asterisk. Within minutes, a reply arrived. Asterisk, check your mother's bank statements. Watch the small transfers. They add up. Asterisk. I didn't have access to my mother's banking, but I had her phone number. At 8 a.m., I called her. Mom, I need you to do something for me. Look at your bank statements from the last 10 years. Are there any small deposits you don't recognize? Amounts under $500. Silence. Then, baby, how did you know? There have been these little payments for years. I thought it was the Hearts holiday bonus system. They never mentioned it, but I just assumed. Mom, those weren't bonuses. Those were distributions from a trust. A trust that was supposed to be for you and me. What do you mean, a trust? I don't understand. I know you don't, but someone has been taking money that belongs to us, and I'm going to find out who. I hung up and called Fiona immediately. Fiona, I need to file a formal request for the trust's financial records, and I need to do it before Serena finds out I know. Already on it, Fiona said. But Avery, there's something else that I ran that background on Claire Vance like you asked. Her husband didn't just die of natural causes. He had filed for divorce 3 weeks before his death, and the beneficiary of his will, the one that funded her current lifestyle, was tied to a property deal that Serena's company brokered. That doesn't make sense. Why would Serena help Claire after destroying Ethan? Because Ethan wasn't destroyed. He was paid off, just like everyone else. Claire got her share, Ethan got his, and Serena got what she always wanted. Control. I put my head in my hands. So, Claire doesn't want to destroy Serena. She wants to protect her share of the trust. Exactly. And she'll sacrifice you to do it. At 10 a.m., I received a courier package at my flat. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting on the label. Serena's sprawling, elegant script. Inside was a single item, a framed photograph. It was a picture of my mother and me, taken in the Hart Estates garden on my 16th birthday. We were smiling, holding a cake, looking genuinely happy. Beneath the photograph, a handwritten note. Asterisk, I know you've been digging. Avery, did I know about Claire? Did I know about the trust? But you don't know the whole story. Meet me at the Edinburgh Airport Terminal, private lounge, Friday 5 p.m. I'll tell you everything. Come alone. And don't tell your lawyer. Asterisk. Serena. I stared at the note for a long time. Every instinct screamed trap. But she had mentioned the trust. She had mentioned Claire. She wasn't threatening me. She was offering information. And I needed information more than I needed safety. I called Fiona. Serena wants to meet at the airport tomorrow. Don't go. I need to. If she's going to tell me the truth about the trust, I need to hear it from her. Then record everything. Don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. And call me the moment it's over. The next day at 5 p.m., I walked into the private lounge at Edinburgh Airport. IT was quiet, sterile, filled with leather armchairs and business travelers pretending to work. Serena was sitting in the corner, dressed in a sharp black pantsuit. No white dress, no tears. She looked like a CEO, because she was one. Avery. She stood as I approached, and for a second, something flickered in her eyes. Regret? No. Calculation. Serena. Thank you for coming. She gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. Please. I sat. I didn't take my coat off. You know about the trust, she said without preamble. And you know Claire has been feeding you documents. Yes. Then you also know that I didn't establish it. My father did, and he named you as a beneficiary because he considered you family, because your mother was the closest thing to a sister he ever had. I blinked. What? My father had an affair with your mother. Years ago, before he married my mother, your mother never told you because she was ashamed. Serena's voice was soft, almost gentle. He loved her. He never stopped loving her. The trust was his way of making sure you were both taken care of. But when he died, his will was contested. My mother threatened to expose the affair, to destroy your mother's reputation. I agreed to manage the trust quietly, and public disclosures, and legal disputes. I sat back in my chair, my mind reeling. My mother, Leonard Hart, the kind, distant man who had always treated me with polite indifference? If that's true, then why did you steal from the trust? Why did you let me struggle? I didn't steal from it. Claire did. She was the one who set up the shell companies, funneled money to her own accounts. I found out 2 years ago, and I've been trying to close them down without triggering a legal nightmare. But Claire has a claim too. My father made her an initial beneficiary because she was his childhood friend. She's been exploiting the legal loopholes. I shook my head. If Claire was stealing, why didn't you expose her? because exposing her would expose the trust, and exposing the trust would expose my father's affair, and exposing the affair would destroy your mother. Serena leaned forward, her eyes locked on mine. I've been protecting you for years, Avery. Not by controlling you, by bearing the truth. The same truth that Claire is now using to manipulate you. I didn't know whether to believe her, but I believed that she believed it. That was the terrifying part. Why are you telling me this now? Because Claire isn't going to stop. She wants the trust dissolved, so she can walk away with her share free and clear. And if she can't, she'll ruin everyone involved, including your mother. I stared at her, searching for the lie. There had to be a lie. There was always a lie. But for the first time, I wasn't sure. After the meeting, I walked out of the airport into the cold night air. I didn't call Fiona. I didn't call my mother. I stood in the parking lot and looked up at the sky, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Uncertainty. Serena and Claire were both telling versions of the truth. Both of them wanted something from me, and both of them were willing to destroy me to get it. But I had one advantage now. I knew about the trust. I knew about the affair, and I knew that whoever I trusted, I couldn't trust completely. I pulled out my phone and called my mother. Mom, I need to ask you something. Did you ever have an affair with Leonard Hart? Silence, then a soft intake of breath. Baby, how did you find out? I closed my eyes. The truth was finally starting to emerge, and it was uglier than I'd ever imagined. Hashtag Chapter 4. My mother's confession came in fragments over the phone, each piece landing like a stone in still water. Leonard was kind to me, she said, her voice small, almost lost. When I first came to the house, he was the only one who didn't look through me. Your father had beaten me for years, and I'd never met a man who spoke softly, who asked my opinion, who treated me like a person. How long did it last? 2 years, maybe 3. He wanted to leave his wife, but his wife was pregnant with Serena, and he was a man who believed in duty. When she found out, she threatened to destroy me, as I ended it. And then I never told a soul, not even you. Did he set up the trust for us? Yes. He told me he would always take care of us, no matter what. I thought he meant the job, the cottage, the education. I never knew about the money. If I had, I never would have accepted it. I believed her. That was the hardest part, and why Mother had never wanted wealth or status. She had just wanted safety. And she had spent her entire life believing that the Harts were her safety net, not the prison around her neck. Mom, I need you to stay calm, I said. I'm going to resolve this, but I need you to trust me. I've always trusted you, baby. That's never been the question. I hung up and sat in my car, the engine off, the cold seeping through the windows. I had 2 choices, believe Serena and help her bury the truth, or believe Claire and help her expose it. But I had a third option. I could find the truth myself. I called Fiona at 6 a.m. the next morning. She answered, breathless, like she'd been expecting me. Avery, I have something. The shell companies Claire set up, they were registered under her maiden name, but the signature on the trust withdrawal forms isn't hers. It's a forged signature, but the forgery is consistent with someone who had access to her personal documents. Serena. Or someone who worked for Serena. I can't prove it yet, but the pattern is there. Someone has been covering Claire's tracks while framing her at the same time. So they're both guilty? Or one of them is trying to make the other look guilty. But the real question is, who benefits from the trust being frozen? I thought about it. If the trust was frozen, all disbursements stop, and no one got paid. Not Serena, not Claire, not me. The only person who would benefit from a freeze was someone who had already extracted their share, someone who had nothing left to lose. I need to see the original trust document, I said. The one Leonard signed, not the copy Claire sent. The original. Good luck getting that. It's in the Hart family vault, which is in Connecticut, which is controlled by Serena. Then I'm going to Connecticut. Avery, that's exactly what she wants. I know, but I need to see her face when I ask for it. I landed in Hartford at 2:00 p.m. and I didn't tell my mother I was coming. I took a cab to the Hart estate, the same sprawling property I had grown up on, and I walked through the front gates like I still belonged there. The housekeeper who opened the door was new. She didn't recognize me. I'm here to see Serena, I said. She's expecting me. She let me in. Serena was in the library, the same room where Leonard had once told me I was a good child, and then sent me away. She was standing by the fireplace, a glass of wine in her hand, wearing cashmere and pearls like she was posing for a portrait. Avery. She didn't look surprised to see me. I was wondering when you'd show up. I want to see the original trust document, the one your father signed. She set her glass down. Why? Because I need to know who signed the withdrawal forms. I need to see if it matches the signature on the original. You think I forged it. I think someone did, and I think you know who. She walked to the bookshelf, pulled a heavy leather-bound folder from the bottom shelf, and handed it to me. IT wasn't locked. IT wasn't hidden. It was just sitting there, like she'd been waiting for me to ask. Read it, she said. All of it. Then tell me what you think. I sat down and read the trust document in its entirety. IT was long, dense, filled with legal jargon that made my head spin. But near the end, I found what I was looking for, the original signature block. Leonard Hart's signature was bold, angular, unmistakable, but the withdrawal forms Claire had sent me, the ones she claimed were forgeries, had a different signature. Looping, elegant, female. Serena's signature. I looked up slowly. You forged the withdrawals. Serena's face went pale. No. You signed them. I can see it. The loops match your handwriting. Those forms were signed by someone who copied my handwriting. I didn't sign them. I've been trying to tell you that the whole time. Claire had access to my stationery. She could have hired someone to replicate my signature. I stared at the paper, then at her. If that's true, why didn't you file a police report? Because my father's affair was in the trust documentation. Because Claire would have exposed it. Because I was more afraid of destroying your mother than losing the money. Her voice cracked. For the first time in my life, I saw Serena Hart genuinely afraid. Why didn't you tell me about the trust when we were younger? I asked. When I was struggling, working 3 jobs, barely scraping by, you let me suffer while that money sat in a trust. Because my mother forbade it. She was terrified that if you knew about the money, you would leave. And if you left, you would take my father's secret with you, and she would have to live with the shame. The money was leveraged to promise to cage. The pieces were falling into place. Serena wasn't the villain I had imagined. She was the same trapped girl I had been, bound by the same chains. What do we do now? I asked. We tell the truth, she said. All of it. To everyone. The next morning, we sat in a conference room in Hartford with our lawyers. The trust documents spread out on the table. I had called Claire and told her to be there. She arrived with her own attorney, her face a careful mask of control. You're going to expose the affair, Claire said, reading the room. You're going to destroy your mother's reputation. No, I said. I'm going to expose the fraud. The trust was established legally, and the withdrawals were illegal. You and I both know who signed them, and if we go to court, we'll find out. Claire's mask slipped. You're bluffing. Try me. She looked at Serena, then at me, and something in her calculations shifted. She knew I wasn't bluffing, and she knew that if we went to trial, she would be exposed as the forger. What do you want? Claire asked, her voice flat. The trust dissolved, the funds distributed equally to the original beneficiaries, and all legal claims against me and Serena dropped. Claire's lawyer leaned in, whispered something. Claire nodded slowly. Agreed. 3 months later, the trust was dissolved. My mother received her share, a little over $200,000, and I received mine. I bought my mother a small house in Edinburgh, close to me. She cried when she saw it. Serena stepped down as CEO of Hart Holdings. She didn't fight it. She had been running from her mother's ghost for too long, and she was tired. She moved to the West Coast, started a small venture fund, and found some peace. Claire disappeared from public life. No charges were filed, but the whispers were enough. She sold her properties and moved to Europe, where no one knew her name. I kept my job. The university investigation was dropped after Serena retracted her complaint and issued a formal apology. My colleagues welcomed me back. Maeve brought me a welcome back cake that had "You survived" written in frosting. And I started writing again. Not history papers, that was still my job, but something else, a memoir. The story of a girl who grew up in someone else's castle, wearing someone else's clothes, never quite sure if she was a guest or a prisoner. I wrote about the basement, the staircase. The moment I walked through the security line at Heathrow and didn't look back. I sent the manuscript to my mother. She read it in a single night, and she called me the next morning, crying. Baby, I never knew. I never knew how much you suffered. Neither did I, Mom. Not until I left. The last time I saw Serena was at a conference in London 6 months later that we ran into each other by accident. She was giving a keynote, and I was in the audience. Afterward, she found me in the hallway. I read your book, she said. It was beautiful. It was also brutal. Truth often is. Are we okay? She asked. I mean, really okay? I looked at her. The woman who had been my warden, my captor, my first love, my worst enemy, and I realized I didn't know the answer. I don't know, I said, but I'm okay, and that's what matters. She nodded, then she walked away. I watched her go, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not grief, not love, just relief. That night, I sat on my balcony in Edinburgh, looking at the stars. My mother was inside, reading a book. My cat was curled at my feet. My life was small and quiet and utterly, completely mine. I had spent decades living in someone else's story, playing someone else's role, and I had finally, painfully, beautifully, walked away. I pulled out my phone and opened the document I had been working on for the last 3 months. It was a letter, not to Serena, not to Claire, not to my mother. To myself. Asterisk, Dear Avery, you survived, you escaped. You are not the sum of the people who hurt you. You are a woman who learned to build her own life, brick by brick, on ground that was never guaranteed. You didn't need to forgive anyone to be free. You only needed to leave, and you did. Congratulations. Asterisk. I closed the phone, looked up at the stars, and for the first time in my life, I exhaled. The story was over. Mine had just begun.